Hello everyone, this is Communicative English and today's video lecture is about how to avoid common pitfalls. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is how to avoid overusing expletives at the beginning of sentences. Number 2, how to avoid unnecessary infinitive phrases. And finally, the third, to avoid circumlocutions in favor of direct expressions. Okay, so what is expletives? So first of all, expletives are phrases of the form that it plus be verb or there plus be verb. So you might be familiar with the expressions that starts with like it was me or like it was him who blah 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 blah, or there was a cat that blah 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 blah. So these kind of expressions can be rhetorically effective for emphasis in some situations, but overuse of them or unnecessary use of these expressions can create wordy prose. So from the beginning, I have emphasized that it is very important to write something simply and easy for readers to understand, to deliver your ideas, thoughts, and opinions effectively. When your sentence gets complicated or unnecessarily long or too wordy, then readers might get lost in the middle of your writings. So today we are going to learn how to write your sentence effectively and efficiently at the same time. Okay? So this is an example. It is imperative that we find a solution. So this sentence can be rewritten like this. We must find a solution. Both sentences are fine, but they have different intentions. So let's imagine that you're a writer. When you say something like the first sentence, it is imperative that we find a solution. Then your intention of saying it is imperative is to emphasize the word imperative. You really want to urge the importance of finding a solution to the readers. You don't want readers to miss that. So you use structures like the first one. It is imperative that we find a solution. But not every single element of every single sentence you write has emphasis. Sometimes you write like a simple and common sentences to deliver your ideas, but without emphasizing any element in it. So in that case, it's not necessary to use structures like the first one. Then you can try something like the second one. We must find a solution. This sentence has exactly the same meaning as the first one, but has much less number of words. So it's more clear what you want to say in this sentence without emphasizing unnecessary parts in the sentence. All right? So once again, I'm not saying that you should not use expressions like the first one. It is absolutely okay to say like the first expression, but you should think about if that's what you really want, because the first sentence is different from the second sentence. They have exactly the same meaning, but the effect of those expressions are different. So keep in mind what is what you really want. Okay, so here are a few examples. The wordy one is, it is the governor who signs or vetoes bills. Okay, when you say something like this, you want to emphasize the fact that the governor is the person who signs or vetoes bills, not somebody else. It should be the governor. It is the governor. You want people to pay attention to the word the governor and want to make sure that readers understand that it is the governor, not somebody else. Only the governor. That's what you want to say. But if that's not your intention, then it is not necessary to have these 9 words to express the same meaning that this concise version of the second sentence can deliver in 6 words. The governor signs or vetoes bills. So this second sentence delivers exactly the same meaning as the first one, but it used 3 less words. Okay? So that relieves the stresses or burdens that readers might feel to read the first one, relatively. Let's look at the second example. There are 4 rules that should be observed. Okay, so how many words are there? There are 8 words in this sentence. And this one emphasizes that there are 4 rules, not 3, not 2, not 5, not 6. There are exactly 4 rules that should be observed. So you want people to pay attention to the word 4 rules because that's something important. But if that is not your intention and you're just simply stating the fact, then you can try to use this concise version of 4 rules should be observed with 5 words to say the same thing. Okay? And let's move on to the next slide. One of the other common mistakes the students make is to directly translate the Korean sentence into English. And what you should know is that the way people say can be different in terms of their language because language always reflects the culture and customs and traditions of the speakers. So for English sentences, sometimes it is awkward if you directly translate Korean sentence into English because there are some redundant or unnecessary expressions possible in the Korean text. So when it happens, the most common situation that happens is people overuse infinitive verbs or some unnecessary replacement of the V verb and so on. Okay, so some infinitive phrases can be converted into finite verbs or brief noun phrases. So instead of using infinitive phrases, you can try to use some other things. And some other phrases that will reduce the complexity of this sentence. And second, making such changes from infinitive phrases into finite verbs or noun phrases can also often result in the replacement of a be verb with an action verb. So in that way, people can see more clearly what you are trying to say. Okay, let's take a look at some examples. Let's look at the first one. The duty of a clerk is to check all incoming mail and to record it. Okay, here we can find an infinitive to check, right? So who's the person checking all incoming mail and recording it? It's the clerk, right? Then why would you change the structure of this sentence to make it more clear who's doing what without using without using infinite verb? Okay, so the concise version without the infinite form could be a clerk checks and records here. We just use the simple verbs instead of to infinitive. Then we can clearly see that the person who's doing something is a clerk, the subject, and what he's doing is checking and recording the verbs, all incoming mail. Okay, so we reduced a sentence with 15 words into a sentence with only 8 words. So the length of the sentence is almost the half of the first one, but it still says the same thing, and even in a clear way. Okay, let's look at the second one. A shortage of tellers at our branch office on Friday and Saturday during rush hours has caused customers to become dissatisfied with service. Okay, here we have verb that caused customers, objects, and what do they do? To become dissatisfied with service. This is object complement. So here what we have is customers are dissatisfied with their services because of the shortage of the tellers, right? So why don't we avoid expressions like a shortage of tellers? We can say a teller shortage. Simpler and actually much easier to understand, right? So we already reduced one word by doing this. So instead of saying a shortage of tellers, you can say a teller shortage. At our branch office on Friday and Saturday during rush hours, it has caused what? Instead of saying customers to become satisfied with service, you can say customer dissatisfaction. And what would they be dissatisfied with? Of course, the service. What would they be what else would they be dissatisfied? It's of course the service. You don't have to say the obvious things on your text if readers can just speculate it within the context, right? So we can not only reduce these two infinitive expressions into one noun phrase, but also we can just omit this part to make the sentence simpler. All right? So this was the second mistake the students people can make when they write, using two infinitives too often. Okay? And what's the next one? It's called circumlocutions. Circum means something around. Locution means saying something. So circumlocution means you're saying something around, not the core. And in Korean culture, at least, people consider it more polite when you say things indirectly. Instead of saying no, we say, it's okay. Instead of saying no thank you, we can say, I'm fine. Saying negative words directly is considered to be impolite. And to be polite, even when we reject or complain about something, we try to level it down by using circumlocutions. But this can be problematic when it comes to writing an article or essays that has to be efficient and easy to read and try to convince someone. When you don't point out the core of your intention directly on your writing, readers might misunderstand your intention. And it is not always something bad. If it is intended, if your intention of writing something more vague or using circumlocutions to let readers decide upon the many possible meanings in your writing, that is okay. If that is your intention, it's absolutely okay to use expressions like circumlocutions or indirect expressions. But you have to think if that's what you want. If that is not what you want, then it is better to write something more directly so that people can actually see and understand what you're trying to say clearly. So circumlocutions are commonly used roundabout expressions that takes several words to say what could be said more succinctly. So what you can say more simply is replaced by more words and more disguised expressions because either that's your intention or because you thought that's a better way to say it. If it is your intention to disguise your true meaning, it is okay. But if that is not your intention, but you just chose to say something extra complicated, then it's not a nice way to write things. It's always better to say things simply and briefly and clearly. So we often overlook that because many such expressions are habitual sorry, I got a sudden phone call. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Okay, so we often overlook these kinds of expressions because many such expressions are habitual figures of speech. So you just got used to say things in that way. So you just do it. That's why when you write something, it's always recommended to take some time to read them again. And this time from the perspective of readers, not the writers. Okay? So in writing, these expressions should be avoided since they add extra words without extra meaning. Right? So you should always consider writing as an efficient job that like there's a limited amount of space and there are too many things to say. Even if that is not how it is right now, you should still pretend that that's what's going on, because readers always capture if writers writing something with extra words without extra meanings because they have nothing to say. Because I'm one of those readers. I always read essays from students who had to use like 700 words to finish their assignment, but they really had nothing to say. So they just put extra meaningless words into their article or essay to just meet the expected number of words. But that's not a good idea. You should always trim down your sentences and try to add more meaningful, creative, interesting ideas into your writing. Okay? But of course, occasionally you may, for rhetorical effect, decide to use, say, an expletive construction instead of more succinct expression. It is okay if that's your intention. But keep in mind that overusing of them can actually do much damage than something beneficial for your writing. Okay? So let's take a look at some examples. Instead of saying like at this point in time or at that point in time, you can just say now or then. Easier and simpler. Instead of saying in accordance with your request. Whoa, accordance sounds so fancy. Not effective. Just you can say as you requested. Easier, simpler. All right? So here are some expressions that many people use habitually to say something that can be said in a much simpler way. Instead of saying because, since, and why, people say the reason for the reason that, owing or due to the fact that, in the light of the fact that, considering the fact that, on the grounds that is why, blah, 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 blah. Unnecessary. I mean, you might consider that these kind of expressions shows your amazing writing skills and like, oh, I know these fancy expressions, but no, it doesn't really help us understanding your intention or what you want to say. So keep it simple, and if you have good ideas, it doesn't matter if you use fancy words or not, because people will be already impressed by your amazing ideas in the writing. Okay? And other examples are like, instead of saying must and should, say it is crucial that, it is necessary that, there is a need, necessity for, blah, 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 blah. These are wordy expressions, and they can come handy from time to time, but not all the time. Okay? These expressions do exist for some purpose, so you have to understand if your intention meets that purpose or not. Okay? And finally, we're going to our last slide with more examples. So let's look at some sentence examples. The wordy one is, it is possible that nothing will come of these preparations. Instead of saying that, you can use may. Nothing may come of these preparations. Instead of saying possible and will, may is the word that can combine the possibility and forthcoming. And instead of saying she has the ability to influence the outcome, has the ability to can be summed up by one word of can. She can influence the outcome. And the third one, it is necessary that we take a stand on this pressing issue. It is necessary that the necessity of the action can be represented by one word, must. All right? So this is the end of our lecture about the common pitfalls that we make when we write something. So now it is time for you to digest what we just talked about and move on to the assignment attached file of this video and work on it and upload it on your e-class. All right? So as I said in last week, we do not have Friday class this week, but still there will be another video lecture next week. So we will see again in October, Friday. All right? So have a great holidays and see you next Friday. Bye-bye.